Welcome back to the Gospel Sports Truths podcast. Man, so much has happened over the week. A lot of NFL, obviously, a lot of NCAA. We had a WNBA championship. Basketball starts tonight with the NBA. Just a whole lot going on, and we are going to recap the weekend on tonight's show. We'll get into a little bit of fantasy football on tomorrow's show. And on Friday, we'll get into just about everything. So make sure you guys check out all three shows for the week on YouTube at The Gospel STP. Again, on YouTube at The Gospel STP. You can also check us out in the Facebook group. If you don't happen to be there yet, make sure you look us up. You can watch the podcast there as well as participate in all manner of Q&A, fantasy assistance, advice, start, sit, all that kind of good stuff, and also stay up to date with the latest happenings in sports. I am your host, Zay, along with my guys, BK Wins and young Vander, the fantasy Nostradamus. We just gonna hop right into it, y'all. I'm gonna give you a few NFL games, and Vander, you can start us out. Let us know what stood out to you, or if anything stood out to you in these games. The first three up, we have the Ravens knocking out the Buccaneers 41-31. We have the Chargers versus the Cardinals. This game came down to the last couple seconds. Cardinals winning 17-15. The Patriots versus the Jaguars ending up at 32-16. What stood out to you in any of these games, or what players did something that was of note as far as your opinion is concerned?
I'm gonna start with the Ravens Bucks game. Again, the Ravens looking like one of the better teams, if not the best team, even though they have a few losses on their belt in the NFL right now. Coming out, Lamar Jackson really like he's having another MVP style season. Threw for 4 or 5 touchdown passes. Also with the Buccaneers losing their top 2 targets, Godwin looked like he's out for the season with a dislocated ankle, and we have Mike Evans with a hamstring. He's probably going to miss about 3. I can see him possibly going on IR, the 4-week IR, maybe missing 4 games. So they probably going to take a nice little hit.
The last thing I saw with Evans was they're saying he definitely won't be back until after the team's week 11 bye. Now, they didn't say he'll be back in week 12, but they said it will definitely not be before the bye in week 11. So.
Right. So, I mean, Baker Mayfield was having one of the better seasons, but I think it's going to be a little decline now due to his weapons. There's been a lot of talk about Cooper Kupp being available. I see Vegas is saying the Chiefs, the Steelers, those guys are some of the odds favorites. But in my opinion, I think the Bucs is the perfect team for this guy, being that the offensive coordinator, where did he come from?
Came from the Rams, yeah.
So also with this is Godwin's contract year, his last year. So he's not going to be there next year anyway. So why not go ahead and walk in this guy who can play right away? So when Evans does come back, it's like nothing ever happened.
And Baker's played with him before too. So
another one. So I mean, that makes most sense to me. No one has talked about it. So you heard it here first, you know what I'm saying, from me. So don't be surprised if it happens. I haven't heard anything, but it just makes the most sense on paper for me.
Yeah, one key stat that just blew me away about Lamar, he's now 23-1 against the NFC. 23-1, that's crazy. Which tells me that he's his own agent. He probably should have signed a deal over there because he'd be in the Super Bowl. But nevertheless, I wouldn't have to run through Mahomes and Reed. But all joking aside, Drake May, he was solid again for New England. Another game, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Yeah, he had a couple sacks. I think the thing that was most surprising for me in that game is the Patriots defense just absolutely no-showed. You give 32 to Jacksonville, like, I mean, they've had a hard time scoring 32 in 2 games. And their defense is supposed to be the strength of their team, and that was just an abysmal performance. So I think that was the takeaway for me. May looked pretty good, but it was more about this. I thought was a winnable game that the Patriots could steal, and the defense it just was bad. Just bad.
Piggyback off of that, BK. There's been some going back and forth between Bill Belichick and Gerard Mayo based on Mayo's comments that the team is soft or playing soft, however you want to frame that. I don't understand how the defense is in such a sharp decline when he's a defensive coach. That's supposed to be like the thumbprint that he puts on the team, if you will. I'm even hearing some rumblings that he may be a one and done coach. For my money, the head coach right now should already be Mike Vrabel. Vrabel, I mean, it just made too much. He already showed success as far as head coaching was concerned. He should have never lost his job in Tennessee. He obviously knows the Patriot way. He played there for forever. And he has enough cachet that I believe he would be able to bring some players along with him that would make, I know this isn't college, but there's still a bit of recruiting that goes on that you still have to be able to do with NFL players. I think he would be a better recruiter of NFL talent than Mayo. I'm glad that Mayo got his shot. And this is not about the win-loss record because I don't know what Robert Kraft thought the win-loss record might look like. But anyone that was paying attention knew we weren't going to win but so many games this year anyway. So it's not the win-loss record. It's that the team doesn't seem to be positively responding to the coach on the side of the ball that was supposed to already be squared away. It'd be different if all of the issues were on the offensive side, but when the defense is regressing, that's a whole different issue, a whole different problem. So
yeah, for me, Zay, and I know you're all things Patriots, so in general, I defer to you on these things. But I guess from an outside perspective, and make no mistake, I'm not burying Mayo after a handful of games. Okay, I'm not doing that. That's unfair. But it wouldn't be the first time in NFL history where a first-time head coach has been a little overwhelmed and is struggling with the adjustment of being the CEO of a team versus just being the expert on one side of the ball. And again, I'm not saying that is the case. I'm not saying that that's a definitive. And
well, I'll say it. That's the case.
But I do think that he's struggling to manage the entire team, which is not surprising for a guy who inherited a tough situation and is a first-year coach. It doesn't mean he can't get there and won't get there, but it takes time.
I don't think he's being fairly judged. I mean, due to what he has in the kitchen. I mean, he doesn't have the right ingredients for a meal. You can't be saying, hey, telling the chef, hey, this food is horrible, and he doesn't have the right, product. He just lost his two best defensive players in the offseason. Barrymore, the defensive tackle, he's injured. They traded Matthew Judon, the best pass rusher on the team, to the Falcons. You're playing with a journeyman quarterback. Now you have a rookie quarterback. You have no wide receivers. Most of the wide receivers are just started drinking. You know what I'm saying? As far as age goes. So, what do you have? How can you really judge this guy fairly and say, hey, well, this should be Vrabel's job when he haven't had the right people in place and hasn't even had the opportunity to bring his own guys in? He's still playing with the riffraff that Bill left. So come on, man.
Well, I'm not judging him based on the ingredients that he has to cook with, if that makes sense. I'm not even looking at the whole meal. I told you guys the statement that you just made is why I didn't want Drake May in there yet. But my thing is the defense has declined week over week. You still have the same pieces that you had 2-3 weeks ago.
You're
3
not
weeks
playing the
ago,
same
the defense,
competition.
the Jags shouldn't be competition. We should be on the same level as the Jags. That's my point.
The Jags are a better team than you all. They haven't played up to their potential, but looking at if you look at the team, they got a better offense than you all. That's
No,
one.
I agree with that. You're missing my point. We've played better offenses and have looked much better, is my point, on defense. I'm not even judging the offense at all. What I'm saying is the decline that we've had on the defensive end of the ball. As BK said, the Jaguars have been hard pressed to put up 32 points in 2 weeks. And we're supposed to be better on defense. Like, I feel like if you can't make it shake on the defensive side, you're not going to make it shake on the offensive side because that's not even your side of the ball. So
you guys are losing games you're supposed to lose. I mean, you came in, you start the season off, y'all got to win over the Bengals, which is shit you wasn't supposed to get. You lose to the Seahawks.
Agreed.
You lose to the Jets. You lose to the 49ers. You
how
lose to
many
the
points
Dolphins.
did the Seahawks put up?
23.
So our defense played better against a better offense.
It doesn't matter. You wasn't supposed to
The
beat them.
Jaguars' offense is not as good as the Seahawks. So that
You
I'm
wasn't
saying
picked
is
to
the
win.
defense has declined.
You wasn't picked to win. You wasn't picked to
How
win
many
beat
points
the
did
Jets.
the Bengals? How many points did the Bengals put up?
10 points. But
And
that's
who
that's
came
the
after
first.
the Bengals in Seattle?
Well, that's the first game of the season. And that's not the
fine.
same.
Who came after Seattle?
That's not the same Joe Burrow.
Okay, who came after Seattle?
You lost to the Jets.
How many points did the Jets
You
put
weren't
up?
supposed to beat them. You
How many
lost to the
points did they put up?
Dolphins. You weren't supposed to beat them. And
How
now you
many
lose to the
points did they
Jags.
put up?
This just is not a good team. I don't want to hear
How
about the
many
defense.
points did they
I
put up?
don't want to hear about the defense when you lost the two best defensive players on the team, and your star cornerback is coming.
Before week 1,
and the star corner is coming back off of injury. This team isn't
he
nothing
came
anyway.
back off injury in week 1.
Okay, he missed all of last season.
To week 6 and 7 to say.
No, I'm just saying, like,
he came off an injury.
Listen, if I come in your kitchen and I give you bologna, bread, some salt, and say I want a 5-course, like, it doesn't happen like that. You have bologna. Hold on, in your kitchen. I don't care. I don't want to hear about no defense
right now.
Don't want to hear about the defense.
The first couple of weeks.
Don't want to hear about
the salad is crappy.
Don't want to hear about
I'm not asking you about the steak.
You got bologna.
You to make a good steak.
You got some spoiled milk.
Why is the salad sucking now?
You got some Oreo.
You got the same ingredients that you had all year.
You got Vienna sausage.
Now the salad sucks.
You got Vienna sausage. You got Vienna sausage. You got a pack of ramen noodles, and you talking
about the noodles all the time.
And you talking about, oh, this is below me. I bet it is. I bet it is. Get out of here.
You only had to make the defense look good, and you did that.
You're doing what you.
Now you're not. What part of that are you missing?
I'm about to tell you. Vienna sausage, ramen noodles, and you talking about this don't taste like.
Who did we lose on defense?
This isn't lamb chop. This isn't lamb chop. I know, because the lamb chop went out the door. You traded your best pass rusher. You traded your best pass rusher, and the guy in the middle, the force, he's injured for the season.
What game did Judon play with us this year?
Don't matter. Your defense wasn't going to be good anyway.
It don't matter.
The defense wasn't going to be good anyway.
3 weeks ago. But now we got to go back to before the first game? Come on.
Just because a guy is a defensive coach, just because he's a defensive coach, don't mean it wasn't going to be good anyway. You can the
point. We wasn't good last year with Bill Belichick, but the defense showed up.
You know why? Because you had better players last year. Matthew Judon was on the team.
So what
Barrymore was on the team.
Weeks 1 and 7.
You're doing what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to get your butt kicked. What else is new?
What happened to the defense who was playing well between week 1 and 7?
What you mean it's playing well?
We played against much better offenses and didn't let them put up 32 points.
You're getting what you're supposed to get. It's not that you was playing better defense. Maybe those offenses hasn't been got going yet. See, it go two ways. You thinking you're playing good defense. No, those offenses hasn't got going. You caught the Bengals week 1 of the season when Joe Burrow was just.
The Jags offense didn't get going against nobody.
You caught the Dolphins. You caught the Dolphins with no Tua.
I think part of what causes it, though, in the first month of the season is what we talk about, which is when you don't have any preseason and you sit out. The first month of the season is glorified preseason that counts for wins and losses. So teams like the Bengals, who had contract issues and Burrow coming off of injury, didn't play all preseason, and they always start slow. So there's that. But you have these other teams that it just, Rodgers is coming back from, being out all last year, didn't play much in the preseason. So he's trying to figure it out. So, you have all these players the first month where you're not going to catch offenses on their peak level because they're basically figuring it out in real time.
Jaguars don't have their starting running back. Trevor Lawrence hasn't been good since he got drafted.
I would argue their better running back has been playing. Bigsby's the better back.
What are you talking about?
Bigsby has been playing better this year, but ETN is still their starting back. All I'm saying is you can't say they're at peak when they're missing starters.
I didn't say he wasn't missing ETN.
How many
ETN is not better than Bigsby.
So they just got in peak performance position this week. Because last week, how did they look? How many points did they put up?
Well, so here's the thing: the Jags are a bad team, but they're still better.
We made them look good.
Patriots who are awful.
But the defense shouldn't be awful. The defense has never been awful. That's my point.
Is it fair to say, though, if the defense has been pretty good most of the year, that on any given day they can have a bad day? How are they going to look next?
Not based on what you guys have just said, because you're basically saying the only reason they were good the first few games is because the other offenses didn't know what they were doing yet.
Look,
so how can I give them credit and take credit?
I've never said they were good. They're bad.
You think the defense is bad?
I think the defense is overall the best part of a bad team.
Okay. Yeah. I agree with that.
But it's also like saying this piece of crap smells better than the rest. That's literally what I'm saying. The team is terrible. It just happens to be the best part of an awful team.
I don't believe that our defense was a bottom feeder as far as defenses are concerned. And to let the Jaguars do what they did, they played, in Mayo's own words, they played soft.
Listen, man, it's a Mercedes, but it's a 1983. Period. That's all it is. Okay. It's an 83 Mercedes. There you go. So it's not a bottom feeder. It's a Mercedes, but it's an old one, the diesel. Let it go.
Them bad boys last a long time. Just saying.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. Let's keep it moving. We got I'm gonna skip a couple of these games because some of them ain't even worth talking about. Seattle, 34 points against the Falcons, 14 points. We saw a little bit of Michael Penix coming in towards the end of the game. They're kind of working them in garbage time and all that kind of good stuff. The Falcons were they were 4-3. I thought the offense kind of turned the corner, and I don't necessarily see the Seahawks defense as being, the toughest of the tough. How do we kind of navigate that game? Is it just every dog has his day? Is this really what the Seahawks are? Really what the Falcons are? How are we feeling about that situation, whether it be on the Seahawks or the Falcons side? Also taking into account DK got hurt in that game, and it looks like he may be out for a couple weeks. I can't remember if it was an ankle or a knee, but DK Metcalf got hurt in that game. So have that also. BK, why don't you start us off?
So for me, again, try not to overreact to 1 week. Seattle played really, really well. Give them credit. Atlanta obviously didn't play well, but we've seen that before, right? Seattle the last 2 years won 9 games both years. People wouldn't be surprised for them to make the playoffs. They're right in the mix now at 4-3. They're in a huge cluster of teams that are on the fringe playoffs. They played pretty solid football. Are they great, super dominant? No, but they played pretty well. And look, having been a Washington fan for a day or two, I've seen enough of Kirk Cousins to know that he has these kind of games, right, where he just doesn't play great. And I think both of these teams will have their good days and bad days because I think if we're being honest, they're 8, 9, 10-win teams depending on health and how teams fare. So it just happened to be a really on day for Seattle and a really off day for Atlanta. I don't read anything more than that.
No, I agree totally with BK. I mean, Cousins turned the ball, throw 2 picks. This Seattle team is kind of underrated defensively. They have a defensive coach as well from the Ravens last year. So just one of those Cousins days. He'll come out next week and throw for 500. And then you'll be like, wow, he's really good. And then he had one of these kind of games. So.
A couple other games of note. Chiefs went up against the 49ers. 28-18 victory there. The Steelers went up against the Jets. 37-15 victory there. The Broncos put up 33 points against Sean Payton's old team, the Saints, who only put up 10. What we're going to do this go round is we'll all take a game to dissect. Vander, I'll let you pick your game first. BK, you're next, and I'll take up the rear.
I mean, Chief Niner game. Yeah, the Chiefs won, but this is an ugly game.
Was there any doubt that he was going to take any other game than when you gave him the option? What are we doing here?
This was a pretty ugly game in my opinion. Both quarterbacks didn't play very well at all. I guess Mahomes done enough, to win, but he didn't pass for any touchdown passes. Pretty didn't throw. He threw some very bad interceptions in the red zone. Also, man, the Chiefs be getting some calls. That boy Bosa be getting held like crazy. He don't get a lot of calls. But this was you got to see the silver lining in this. I mean, the 49ers facing a lot of injuries. The best player on the team is hurt. They just lost Ayuk for the season. Now you have Debo who has pneumonia. So it's Greenlaw hasn't come back yet off of his injury. There's a lot of injuries on this team. They lost the DT, Hargrave. He's out for the season. So, it's not the 49er team of old per se, but they didn't play bad considering what they had. But I think it would just showed a lot to maybe teams that were watching how you can attack now the Chiefs. I think they probably showed something. And also the 49ers are in a pretty vulnerable state right now, and teams are just taking advantage of them.
BK.
So that I'm dying to talk about the Broncos being 4-3, winning 3 in a row, and yet another blowout. But you know what? I'm going to let you talk about the Broncos because I know Sean Payton's your BFF. So I'm going to talk about the Jets and the Steelers because we talk about we hate losing and we really love winning. I really love being right. And boy, was I right again. So help me understand. Aaron Rodgers gets his new toy, Devontae Adams. He's the second coming, all these great things. 3 catches for 30 yards. He was a no-show. They're up 15-6. They're doing pretty well. Let me get this straight. The Steelers went on a 31-0 run. If this was basketball, they'd be out of timeouts in the third quarter. What are we doing? Remember how I also said last week how after this week the Bills would be 5-2 and the Jets would be 2-5 and there'd be a 3-game difference and with the breaker before Do we remember this conversation? And that Rodgers can't stop playing, throw it to the other team? Well, he shit the bed again. He had $175 through 3 quarters. I know he finished with 275 in garbage time when the game was over, but he threw 2 picks. The team no-showed in the second half. And look, I'm going to say what I'm going to say. The Jets team has 0 chance of making the playoffs. They're done.
Well, in all fairness, I won't make a comment on that game, and I'm going to move on to the Broncos and the Saints.
Why not? Go ahead. Say what you say your piece.
I'll give a one-liner. I've said it once. I'll say it again. Devontae Adams can't save you. And you only won 2 playoff games with him in the last 7 years. So you'll have more of the same. It is what it is. Broncos versus the Saints. I'm going to be honest with y'all. This is the Gospel Sports Truth podcast. So every now and then, my truth changes. The truth is always the truth. But what you personally believe every now and then, based on new evidence, based on, I would say, new circumstances, can kind of change a little bit. Make no mistake about it. I still don't like Sean Payton at all. But I can't argue with the fact that he's above 500 and he has a quarterback that wasn't in the quote-unquote upper echelon of picks, but he indicated that Nix was his guy. He was the guy that he saw having the most potential at the position. And they're putting up points. Now, granted, the defense had a lot to do with the end game, if you will, and also the fact that the Saints are missing like everybody has a lot to do with it as well. But anytime you can put up 33 points in an NFL game with a rookie quarterback, you got to give that rookie and that head coach a pat on the back. And I'm not above saying that the Broncos are playing much better than I thought they would be. I thought it would be more likely, and I'm just keeping it a buck. I thought it'd be more likely that the Patriots would have the record that the Broncos have than the Broncos having the record that the Broncos have. I thought the records would kind of be flip-flopped a little bit.
Wow.
Well, the reason I say that is because I think our defense can play just as well as Denver's defense. And I also believe that as far as offense is concerned, we don't have a Sutton, but they don't have anybody else on offense other than Sutton. I think our running back is better than their running back, and I think our rookie quarterback is as good as their rookie quarterback. So I honestly feel that the Broncos are one of the teams that are making it very difficult for Gerard Mayo to have an excuse, to be honest with you. That's just kind of...
Listen, your defense is not even the same area code. Y'all in 843, they in 803. Yeah, y'all in the same state, but it's matter of fact, y'all in 843, they're in 864. It's like further up. You know what I'm saying? Like
top 5 defense last year. I mean,
again, it's not the same players from this year to last year.
It's one player difference, and we lost our starting cornerback last year.
2 players I named. One of them hurt. One of them going to injury, which is the interior. Barrymore.
Right. But, yeah.
Barrymore is a force in the interior.
Barrymore getting hurt definitely hurts us.
And Matthew Judon is one of the best pass rushers in football. This team has arguably the best corner in football, even though he didn't play against the Saints.
Surtain is a beast. Agreed.
But this defense is it's not even close. Like, come on, man. Don't do that.
And I think the 2 big differences between these teams, right? The Broncos defense is much better. The Broncos have a top 5 defense, legit. They're much better than New England on defense for the reasons Vander laid out. But the second thing is coaching. Sean Payton's a solid NFL coach, and I'm not condemning Mayo for the reasons we talked about, but he doesn't have the team nor the experience to compete coaching-wise with a guy who's as savvy and experienced as Payton, who's seen it all. I just think for both of those reasons, it's a big difference. And look how the Broncos have looked after a 1-3 start. They buried the Buccaneers. They buried the Raiders. They buried the Saints. And I know the Saints were without a plethora of offensive players. I get it. But a rookie quarterback on the road and you blow them out, like another easy win. It's hard to win. You know, you laugh at these coaches all the time who give coach speak. It's really hard to win. It's even harder in the NFL. To do it 3 games in a row with a rookie quarterback who's still really green and trying to figure things out, I think that's really impressive. Like, I give Sean Payton a lot of credit.
Last 3 games, same setup. You get to pick one. BK, you're going to start us out this go-round. Bengals versus the Browns, 21-14 win for the Bengals. Lions versus the Vikings, 31-29, the Lions take it home. Texans versus Green Bay, 24 Green Bay, 22 Texans. BK, which game you taking?
So I'm going to give you guys the more of the games of the day. I'm not going to take the easy way out like my boy Vander over here did with the Chiefs and Niners. So I'm going to take.
So you're not going to take your Ohio team.
I'm going to take the Battle of Ohio. So, and here's why. I also have mentioned before how I just feel like the Bengals are destined for that run after the 1-4 start. They got the win last week, although ugly against the Giants, right? And then this was a big game because they were 1-6 against, or 1-5 or 1-6. Burrow was against the Browns. The Browns always beat them. This was a big game for the Bengals, and they were able to win that game. And so now they're 3-4, and they have another big showdown against the Eagles this week at home. If they can get to 4-4, they're starting that playoff push that I anticipated them making, and kind of overcoming that slow start. But the thing that I'm going to take is Cleveland fans should be absolutely ashamed of themselves. And here's why I'm going to chastise them. Look, Deshaun Watson is a horrible human being, a horrible person. And I will never, ever, ever, ever condone sexual assault, women being abused, or any of the nonsense, garbage, absolutely disgusting things that Watson did. At the end of the day, it's not Watson's fault that the Browns ownership was dumb enough to pay him. It's also, I don't care how bad someone sucks as a human being or how awful they've played at quarterback. And God knows Watson has been terrible. But you never, ever, ever, ever never, ever cheer for someone to get injured or that they got seriously injured. That's Bush League. It's inexcusable. It's terrible. You cannot ever do that to anybody. I as somebody who lived in Cleveland almost my whole life, and look, I'm not even a Browns fan. I don't care if they ever win another game. That's embarrassing. You can't do that.
And you're at home. Is your quarterback, and you cheering the fact that.
Hey, I've seen fans boo Santa Claus, man. So hey, it happens, right?
It's different if you're talking about Philly. Philly is a whole different model.
It's a whole different.
You can't judge
any of the other 31 teams than that.
Philly will boo any and everybody. It don't matter. That's different. What you got for it, man?
But the big take, I mean, real quick on the Browns, I mean, I don't know if this is the way they want to get it. You know what I'm saying? I was hoping some of the charges can help them contractually, but the injury, not so much. I mean, now they stuck with him again next year, and now he's been already playing poorly, and now he's coming back off an additional injury. This thing is just a train wreck.
Only
Wow,
in Cleveland.
I don't even remember the Browns having a good QB. Maybe Kozar, no pun intended. You know what I'm saying?
You know
That's
who they
probably
had?
about the last time.
You know who they had? They had Baker Mayfield.
No. But again, Baker Mayfield is a guy that they didn't nobody see him coming like this. Same thing goes for Geno Smith. Same thing going for Sam Darnold this year. These are guys that was in bad
Location
situations.
matters. Location matters.
Right. So these are guys that's in.
Yeah, but to Vander's point, right? Baker Mayfield, they couldn't run him out of town fast enough because for the most part, he didn't play well in Cleveland.
Right.
That's why they made the move. He didn't play great there. He's playing a lot better in a different situation, like absolutely. Darnold and Geno Smith. The situation, the culture, and the coaching matters.
Coaching and location. Two of the quarterbacks that you just named played with the same team that booted them out, and they did better when they went somewhere else. Geno and Sam both are with the Jets. Every quarterback, if Aaron Rodgers, who, regardless of how I feel about him personally, first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback, can't do anything with the Jets, what the heck did we think Geno Smith and Sam Darnold was going to be able to? It's certain location. Cleveland had a guy that is doing great in Tampa Bay. He didn't do very bad with the Rams. The only place that he looked so lackluster that they wanted to run him out of town was the town that no quarterback seems to be able to do well in.
Wasn't he in Carolina for a year?
Sam Darnold was in Carolina. You talking about Baker or Sam?
Why do I see Baker Mayfield in
Carolina?
But
hell, honestly, Carolina is another version of location. Sam Darnold did pretty good until he got hurt. He didn't have an offensive line, but he was leading the league in rushing touchdowns from a quarterback that year, and then he got hurt. But Carolina is another one of the dumpster fires that quarterbacks go to die. I mean, so location matters a lot. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah. As far as this Green Bay Texas game, looked like Jordan Love is playing like everybody thought C.J. Stroud was going to play like. Maybe C.J. Stroud is having a sophomore slump. I know his best target is down, but he hasn't really looked like the C.J. of last year. Last year, he didn't turn the ball over as much. His turnover was a lot higher this year than compared to last year. And Jordan Love, man, looked like they got one with him. I think he was he leading or second in the league in like passing touchdowns? And this guy missed like 2 games. Like that says a lot. And he's not playing with all world weapons. Like he's playing with a bunch of Jags himself. You know, a bunch of just guys that throw out there. I mean, who's Christian Watson? Who is Romeo Dobbs? Who is Bo Melvin? These are just
they're all guys that Aaron Rodgers couldn't win with.
No, but going back to Aaron Rodgers, though, Aaron Rodgers don't like young guys. There's certain people that don't like young. I mean, you got you got
win with them. Aaron Rodgers don't like
you got
nobody.
coaches. You got coaches in this league that don't play rookies. Like they despise rookies. It's just one of those things. Like, and he's one of those guys. Like, I'll give you an example. Devonta Adams, he's an all-pro wide receiver. Guess what? His first 2 years in Green Bay, you didn't see him. You see what I'm saying? So
yeah.
It Jordan just Aaron don't mess with the young pups. He just get out of here. He wants somebody that's ready to go. He don't want to teach you on the job. When you're on the field, he expect you to know what you got going on. And that's the thing about Aaron Rodgers. So they all learning together. I guess, with Jordan Love being young himself, and he got the young pass catchers, they're all learning together. But what I'm saying is he's not playing with any all-pro wide receivers, anything. He's having a hell of a season. And Green Bay, I think, is he can sneak up on a few guys in this division for sure. Oh, real quick before we go further, in this division, we didn't speak on Minnesota, but
Minnesota's next. I got that game.
Okay, cool.
Lions versus Minnesota. 31-29 win for the Lions. Honestly, I think this game said more about the Lions than it did about the Vikings. The reason I say that is because losing by 2 points to the Lions, who were deemed as being the better team in the division, definitely has a top-notch defense. And they're playing like they've been there before because they have. The Vikings haven't been in this situation since they were the Purple People Eaters. And if you don't know what that means, that's telling you how many years ago that was. So I can kind of see, especially with it being divisional, I can see this being a you get one and we get one type of a situation. It would have been different if they lost by a large margin. I would say that I would be judging them and the game a little bit more harshly. But I think the line, I know you can never say that any team doesn't mind losing, but I'll say that I feel like the Lions would have been hurt more by the loss. The way that they approached the game was okay, we have to show you that you aren't where you think you are, and you aren't where we are as a team, and you haven't taken the road, you haven't traveled the road that we had to travel to get to where we are. So I just kind of feel like it was a different level of, how would I say? There was just a different level of energy, if you will, from each team. And I don't really think that it's indicative of either one of the teams, first of all, not making the playoffs. So it doesn't necessarily matter. And they, again, get to play each other again. So it'll all come out in the wash if the Vikings take that second win. But at the end of the day, I mean, both teams played well. It came down to 2 points. And those 2 points, in all honesty, came down to a few mistakes that the Vikings made. And now, who's to say if Hutch was in there? He's a force multiplier. This game could have been a whole lot more than 2 points if their best defensive player had actually, been able to do what he does. But you got who you got right now. I don't really think this game is as impactful as maybe a few Lions fan may feel it is. It's kind of where my head is on the game.
So for me, I think it's a swing game, right? We talk about these all the time. For the Lions, it's kind of like like you said, they wanted to restore order and let the Vikings know we're still the beast of this division. The other thing is had the Vikings won, the Lions are down 2 games and had the breaker. And even though there's 10 games to go, you don't want to have to try to make that up. So now that they won, that's a big deal. Now they're even and have the breaker and have a return game at their place where they have to feel good about it. The Lions are hot now. They blew out the Cowboys, and the Cowboys are a different discussion. But this was an important game, I think, for Detroit, just to restore order, let Minnesota know, hey, it's cute that you got off to a great start, but the title still runs through the Motor City. And it was a really impressive effort for Detroit, especially knowing they lost their best defensive player mid-game, because sometimes that can rattle teams, especially with the nature of his injury.
There's also been some rumors floating around that the Vikings may be trade location for Matthew Stafford. So
Stafford,
yeah, because you got to think about it. The Rams want to get younger at quarterback.
I can see why the Rams would do it. I don't see you think he's going to play better than Sam Darnold? He's playing right now.
He's the better quarterback. It's the same.
I'm not saying he's not a better quarterback, but what I'm saying
Mhm.
is you can't play much better than only losing one game.
Yeah, you can. Yes, you can. I mean, because you can be winning in spite of. We just seen Justin Fields be 4-2 and got his job snatched from him, right? So I mean,
That's a different setup though. But both like him going to wait a
uh
minute. Who's the is there OC? Wait,
huh,
OC or head coach? One of them came from the Rams, right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it makes sense, right? Same thing, the same move that the Rams made with Detroit. They thought Matthew Stafford was the missing piece to the Super Bowl. They got them over the hump with golf. It happened. They won the Super Bowl. I think the Vikings, if they do make this move, they all in. So they already have their quarterback of the future that's healing right now. But if we want to win right now, Sam Darnold's not the quarterback to win right now. I think if they bring in Matthew Stafford, not saying he's all world, but they feel like he's good enough with this defense and with the offensive weapons that they do have, they'll be a force in the NFC if you put Matthew Stafford behind center in Minnesota, in my opinion.
Let's move on over to college ball. There are a few topics of discussion as we wrap up here in about the next 15, 20 minutes, give or take. I'm going to ask the same question to start off this week that I asked last week. Is Bama still a playoff team or not?
For me, the answer is clearly no. And now it doesn't mean that they can't still get there, because in the conference they're at, they're going to have opportunities to win games against ranked teams starting this week at home against Missouri. But what I will say is the honeymoon quickly has ended for Kalen DeBoer in Tuscaloosa. And what I'll also say is, since the absolutely stunning and sensational first half beatdown they gave Georgia at home, they've looked terrible the last 3.5 games. They played a terrible second half against Georgia. They played bad on defense against Vandy, where they played a cover 0. And then they played bad against South Carolina, and only because the Gamecocks beat themselves did they not lose that game. They actually got outplayed by the Gamecocks in that game and were lucky to survive. And then they played bad against Tennessee as well. So as of right now, they're not a playoff team. They got to run the table and look good doing it. That's it.
Right now, I'm gonna say no, but in all honesty, this team wasn't very good last year. So it's not like a huge surprise, even though Saban is gone. I think if Saban was present, they'll still be going through the same growing pains right now, in my opinion. I mean, yeah,
So
they have
it's not a coaching issue in your opinion. It's just the team.
no. It's just that everyone has caught up issue. It's NIL. It's Vanderbilt has former Alabama players. It's Colorado has former Alabama players. This person has former Georgia players. Like NIL, different things. The it's even now across the board.
I just want to add one thing. Just to be clear, this is not a coaching thing, to Vander's point. This is very simply a Milroe issue. He didn't play well consistently last year.
Right.
He struggles. He struggles in games where athletes are similar in terms of ability, which you see in the SEC, and you make him read defenses, he still can't do it. He struggled against Tennessee. He struggled again in the second half against Georgia when they made adjustments. He struggled against South Carolina with the Gamecocks' tremendous D line and some of the coverage things they did. It's not hard to confuse him. He's, to be honest, if you were to pick one thing, he's the problem. And to Vander's point, last year, remember, Bama lost against Texas early in the year where Milroe didn't play great. They should have lost to Auburn where they pulled that game out of their ass. They should have lost to Arkansas where they almost blew a big lead, and Arkansas gave that They should have lost 3 games last year. They weren't a playoff team last year. They're not a playoff team this year. It's much of the same. Vander outlined it perfectly. I'm just driving that car home.
Yeah, I mean, why did Saban leave? He's seen the writing on the wall. I mean, you can understand once NIL came in and he's like, nah, this ain't fair. You've been doing NIL on your own your whole career, but now that everybody can do it and it's in the open and it's legal now it's a problem.
How they say it ain't no fun when the rabbit got the gun.
Absolutely. And I mean, to BK's point, Milroe is really not that good of a quarterback, in all honesty. He's someone that has showed success because of the guys around him. He's not an NFL level quarterback. I mean, he's not the quarterbacks that Alabama are accustomed to. They're really accustomed to more game manager style quarterbacks. He's a little more erratic. I mean, yes, we've seen Tua win games. So I'm talking about the McElroys and these guys. These guys wasn't just out there when they were just out there not turning the ball over. And, Saban was just beating you on the line of scrimmage, running the ball, and let his skill players make plays. This team is a little different. But I think the writing was on the wall. Sometimes you got to get out before the ship sinks. So
now this one is, I'm not piling on this team, but it's just a couple of things that I've noticed, right? Michigan loses to the Fighting Illini, who's actually playing pretty well this year.
yeah.
But if Michigan is as bad as they've looked in a few of these games, then we probably shouldn't have given Texas as much credit as they got for beating Michigan. And who else has Texas really played other than the team they just lost to this past week in Georgia, outside of Michigan? The next best team they played was Washington. Washington lost a whole heap load of players after last year. So did we and you can tackle any part of that statement that you choose to. Did we crown Texas too soon? Did the cheating help Michigan a little bit more than anybody actually let on? And we're kind of seeing the fruits of that at this point. I know they lost a couple of players as well. How much credit should Georgia get for beating a team that hasn't beat anybody but Michigan? Especially when we're saying that Alabama probably isn't a playoff team and they beat Georgia. Tackle that however you choose to.
So I'm going to jump in first here. Here it is, right? So for a Michigan standpoint, they lost 15 players to the NFL. They lost their head coach, who's one of the 3, at the time, a top 3 coach in college football. So you lost a top 3 coach in college football, 15 starters, including your starting quarterback who was really good in college, and a litany of NFL players. And then you replace them with a coach who's a first-year head coach, have no quarterback answer. You're trying to replace half your defense. You're playing a new schedule that's much tougher. And at the end of the day, I give Texas credit for that game because it's really hard to win in the Big House. Nobody had won there in 3 years. So, I give them credit for that game. But the other part to that is this. People are going to fight me on this. Texas, you had to pick 4 teams last year. But Texas wasn't a playoff team last year. They beat Alabama in week 2 on the road, had no key wins the rest of the year, and rode that Bama win to a team that should have had 3 losses to the playoffs. And at the end of the day, look at Texas this year. Their win is over a Michigan team that's going to have at least 5 losses. They already got 3, and the Buckeyes are coming. So, and they have 1 more, I'm sure, coming. So they've got at least 5 losses coming. So for me, it's a reminder from Georgia where the title road runs through. In college sports, emotion plays a huge role in the outcome of these games. You see home crowds carry teams that aren't as good to upsets, but you also see emotion propel teams to play their tails off. Georgia was told all week that they were the underdog. And you know, Kirby Smart, a disciple of Nick Saban, literally told his team all week, nobody expects us to win this game. Why do you guys even show up? We got no chance. Just listen to the media. Texas is the best team we've ever played. We got no chance. How'd that work out? And the other thing is, Texas has a quarterback problem. Urs is not as good as everyone thinks he is right now. He's playing hurt. I think he came back too soon. And Arch isn't ready. You play against the best of the best. You figure out real quick where you are, and the dogs ran him out of the stadium.
I mean, I can't say it any more beautifully. What a great soliloquy by BK.
And you all stayed awake.
But I mean, he said a mouthful. I never thought Texas was the best team. That's number one. Michigan, again, they lost all of these things. Who knows how many kids they lost to the portal? They just lost those kids to the draft. They probably lost a lot more kids to the portal. New coach. I mean, you lose your quarterback. I mean, had nobody in the wings waiting. Like, you can really be out of here. You know what I'm saying? Considering this thing is pretty much up for grabs. I think Georgia is the best team we have, but I think there's going to be some sneaky teams like a Penn State that can maybe catch you at the right time. Oregon, we've seen playing well as well. Very surprising win by them, I might add. But I think it's Georgia's game to. I put it to you like this: if Alabama play Georgia again, which they probably will, in the SEC championship, possibly. Who knows? Alabama might not even make it.
Right.
But
right, that part.
They probably going to roll them over. To be honest with you, this time, it's like, you know, so.
Oklahoma needs to see if there's some type of a way to revoke this move to the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
Is there some type of clause in the contract that says if we get our brains beat in by the bottom teams in the SEC in the first year that we move, we can go back, or we can act like this never happened? They need to figure out something. This is not the place for you, Oklahoma. Texas just left the Pac-12. You might have been able to run the Pac-12, or at least be one of the top dogs in it. You're not a dog at all in the SEC. The South Carolinas of the world, the Kentuckys of the world, the Vanderbilts of the world, you're not a dog at all. Like no one is even looking at you as a big game on their schedule other than Texas, and that's because it's the Red River rivalry. If it didn't have a name to go with the game, that wouldn't even be circled as a big game. Oklahoma's in trouble, and I don't think there's anything that they can do about it. They're about to be relegated as being one of the teams that no one cares about, and it's kind of sad. BK, am I overreacting? Is it too soon? What's your thoughts?
No, it's not too soon. So first, I want to give credit to the Gamecocks because they had a near miss. They played really well at Kentucky and they steamrolled a Kentucky team that's proven to be able to play pretty solid football. They gave Georgia all they could handle. They upset Ole Miss. They hadn't won in Oxford since 1978. So, give Kentucky credit. Carolina blew them out. Carolina's been inconsistent, but when they play well, they've looked really well. They had Bama beat. They had them beat. And they let them off the hook.
LSU beat.
They had LSU beat as well. So this team has played overall really well this year. So I want to give, first of all, credit to the Carolina for an improved overall game that they've played over a long part of the season. Ever since that egg they laid in the opener against Old Dominion, they've overall played pretty well. Give them credit. Oklahoma, look, I said this on our show earlier. Oklahoma was stupid to give Venerables an extension after 1 year last year because you look at their schedule. Their schedule's tough this year. Their schedule's even worse next year. And I told you guys, and I know I've told you, Zay, multiple times, Venerables is getting fired by the end of next year. It might be this year. They already canned their OC. Like, this team is awful. They're bad.
Hey, welcome to the SEC, man. You have, what, 8 teams in the top 25? I mean, this is what I know, Zay, like we've been trying to tell you, this is what you get. I mean, the guys at the bottom will beat you up. You know what I'm saying? Like the Vandies, the Kentuckys, the South Carolinas of the world, they'll beat you too. So you know what's going to happen when you play the big dogs.
The lower teams are actually impressing me more than some of the better teams this year in the SEC, to be honest. But some of the teams that would be considered the lower teams of the Big Ten are impressing me this year. The Fighting Illini are undefeated. Indy is undefeated, and they were dominant against Nebraska, 56-6. Look, I've watched some of these Hoosier games. They look like a squad. I'm just
but Nebraska, the only game Nebraska has circled was Colorado. They don't. They season.
Not
they
just
already won.
They beat Nebraska that bad. It's that their offense has never looked this good. I've been watching Big Ten football for a long time. I haven't seen Indy come out and put up 56 points against anybody. I don't know if I've ever seen it.
Well, the most impressive thing is they had 42 at halftime. So that was as far as Illinois goes, and Vander will love this because he usually thinks the same way on these things. We'll find a little bit more about how one-loss Illinois does when they travel to Eugene and get the Ducks this week.
Right.
The Ducks The Ducks are the better team. Like, if they beat the Ducks, that's outstanding. But I don't think if they lose, I'm gonna feel some kind of way because they were supposed. They're not better than the Ducks.
I just think they're going to get a come to Jesus with the Ducks this week.
Right. Agreed.
Miami might be one of the worst undefeated teams I've ever seen in my life.
They're lucky.
Their offense is clicking sometimes, at least towards the end of games. Their defense is non-existent pretty much against any team at any point in the game. And I don't know that in that conference it'll matter very much, but Miami might be one of those games that people say, see, this is exactly why we shouldn't have 12 teams in the playoffs. Like, by the time it's all said and done, because when they play against somebody that is worth playing against, when it matters the most, I think the luck is going to run out. And I know Michael Irvin was having a ball down there on the sideline in between having heart attacks because, this was just – they're letting teams that aren't very good make a great showing. And that's never the sign of a good to great team. So, am I being a little too hard on the Hurricanes? Is a win, and it doesn't matter how bad it looks? Like, what are our thoughts as far as Miami is concerned?
As far as the Hurricanes, I think they're not going to really get a taste of the medicine until the playoff comes. Because you look at their schedule remaining, the remaining teams, they have Florida State. Bobby Bowden is not on the sideline. They got Duke. My boy Steve Spurrier is not on the sideline. They got Georgia Tech. They got Wake Forest, and then they have Syracuse, and Syracuse don't have Jim Brown. Last time I checked, so I think that these are games they probably can win. So they can probably run the table undefeated. But once they get to the playoffs and the big boys are hanging around, I'm not sure the ACC has a championship game, right?
They do.
So maybe they'll see their, a tougher challenge in the ACC championship game. I'm not sure if SMU is on the other
Miami
side.
and Clemson.
So there you go. So I think that's when they're running into a little pushback. But they've just been favored schedule-wise this year and just been able to outscore teams like they did Louisville this past weekend.
So what I love about that is, I won't mind patting myself on the back a little here, but Miami and Louisville, the total for that game was 61, and I'm like, is Miami's defense is terrible, and Louisville's defense is somehow worse. So, and the fact that they scored 97 points, I easily covered that 61. So that was the easiest bet of the weekend.
Lastly, for college, and this one, I don't expect either of you to have a bunch of background information and blow by blow, takes on. But this one is personal to me because the academies, that's Army and Navy, there's Air Force as well, but we're talking about Army and Navy right now. They're both undefeated through week 8 for the first time since 1945. I don't know what the future holds as far as end of season. I don't believe that the powers that be would let either of them make it to top 12. Either way we sliced it, it would be a marvel to see. And they may not be able to keep them out if they do remain undefeated. But I'm a proud former sailor as well as an airman. Air Force isn't doing quite as well as Army and Navy, but that's a different conversation for a different day. But yeah, Army and Navy are doing their thing. It's going to make for a collision course, if you will, when Army and Navy meet up with each other at some point in time this year. That may mean a lot more to service members than it does to the general college viewership, if you will. But they're playing some good ball. Any comments as we wrap up the show with Army Navy?
Well, I think, you said it. They got to run into each other the last game of the season, right? But not only that, Army has Notre Dame on their schedule. Yeah. So that's going to really be the telltale if they can get up high enough. Now, if they can find a way to beat Notre Dame, this thing going to get real tricky as far as this whole playoff thing plays out. You know what I'm saying? But it's all going to be up to those two games as far as Army's concerned. They're going to they got to play each other. That's one, and then they have Notre Dame on the schedule. That's two. So, let's see. I mean, I don't know how high would a Notre Dame win. How high do you think they can really get?
If you're undefeated and you beat Notre Dame, who was a highly ranked team at a point this year, I don't understand the point of having 12 teams if a team that's undefeated and beat a team that's a perennial college name. If you run the table and beat Notre Dame, and if they are lucky enough that Navy is still undefeated when they play them, like, what else do you want?
Yeah, so for me, right, I think it's great for college football because not only are they undefeated, but I've actually watched them play a couple games, and they score a lot of points. Like, for the first time in, like, years, their offense is actually legitimately good. Not great, dominant, anything like that, but it's legitimately good. And they're rolling up. Like, Navy had 38 early second quarter this week against Charlotte. Like, there used to be years where, like, 3 games it took Navy to get 38. So, and Army too. So, like, these teams are scoring points. They're fun to watch. And to both of your points, look, they're both undefeated. They're both ranked. They both have Notre Dame on their schedule, and they both play each other. Notre Dame gets Navy this week, so Navy gets the first shot at them. And by the way, should Notre Dame lose this game, and Navy in recent years has given them fits with much worse teams, mind you, if Navy beats Notre Dame, bye-bye Notre Dame playoff chances. They're not. They would be 2 losses. They're not going to survive the Northern Illinois loss and a loss to Navy, and they're not in a conference. So they won't have a conference title game or championship to save them. They lose, they're done. That's it.
And that pretty much wraps it. Oh, go ahead, Vander.
Real quick, I mean, the thing about Army, I would say, this is the offense is, it seems elementary in a way. It's old school football, but this isn't the easiest offense to prepare for in a week's time. So when you're used to all this different air raid, this, that, full foul, all this, and then somebody come running this thing, like if you're not disciplined, they're running the score up on you. And you see their quarterback has been having some success running that offense, man. So it's fun to watch, I tell you that for sure.
I haven't, as of late, heard the word discipline associated with Notre Dame. So I'll just say that. We'll see how it all turns out.
I mean, look, Notre Dame fans are trying to figure out if Freeman's the right guy there. You know, for whatever
the seat
reason,
is scorching, but it's getting a little warm. The seat warmer has been turned on.
I'm just telling you, the sources that I have indicate that the seat is starting to warm up there in South Bend.
Make sure you guys, again, check us out on YouTube at The Gospel STP. If you haven't joined the Facebook group, hop on Facebook and type in The Gospel Sports Truth Podcast. And we'll see you tomorrow with the Fantasy Football Show. And on Friday, we will have The Gospel Sports Truth Podcast where we go over everything sports. There'll be a little bit of WNBA. There'll probably be a little bit of NBA, a little bit of NFL. Great time of year to be a sports fan. Remember, tell the truth
and nothing but the truth.
We out.
Later, y'all.